Women in Buffalo Television.
You can't do a program without talking with the inimitable Carol Jason, spending over 2 decades at Channel 4 as anchor there, reporter. And Carol, welcome to WBBZ. You made your mark in Buffalo, coming from Harrisburg, and from reading the notes, Buffalo really just must still hold a strong, special place in your heart, even though you've moved on.
Oh, absolutely. Buffalo was my home for 23 years. I had my children in Buffalo. They were raised in Buffalo, and I just love it. I still do. I still consider Buffalo my home, even though I've been away for 12 years. But there's always, the comfort of what Buffalo meant to me and still means to me. Oh yeah, I absolutely love it. Miss my friends. Mm-hmm.
You had such an enormous audience in Western New York, and powerhouse ratings and powerhouse anchor team there with, of course, the late Bob Coop, and before that John Beard, and then Don Postles. I'm sure you've been asked this a million times. You know what's coming. Do you miss that at all?
I miss having my fingers in everything. I miss knowing everything. I miss having that connection with, okay, what's the real story here? What really went on? But that's about the only thing I do miss. I get a real joy, and I'm very sincere when I say this. I just get a real joy when people recognize Craig, and people come up to him and talk to him, because he's worked so hard at his craft, and he's become such a great anchor, and it just gives me a lot of pride to see him living the kind of life that I had in Buffalo. It gives us a really good, a really great living here. But do I miss the limelight? No. Frankly, I aged out, and I think I retired at a really good time.
Well,
and I don't mean to say that women can't keep going. Of course they can. I chose not to.
Well, you raise an interesting point. I mean, I've often heard, and I've been in front of the camera and in management positions, and I've seen and been privy to conversations that are really not very pleasant when it comes to how women age, and you're right, it's a very unforgiving business sometimes.
It is, but I probably could have continued for as long as I wanted in Buffalo, because I was there for so long, and I was a known commodity, and people saw me age, and I think they would have accepted me just as they have accepted the male anchors. But people ask me, well, why don't you get into TV, in Kansas City or Omaha? I said, well, number one, you can't have 2 anchors in the same household. Number two, I have no desire to do that, not to start again at my age, and have people, accept me. So when I left Buffalo, I left all that behind, and I truly do not miss being in the limelight. I really don't.
We know you're very busy. Do you consider yourself a pioneer in Western New York television for what you did?
I guess I wasn't I was the first full-time female anchor at Channel 4. So in that regard, I guess I was kind of a pioneer. But certainly Sheila Murphy at Channel 2 was anchoring before me full-time. There was Susan Banks at 7, I believe she was weekends. When I got to Buffalo, and I got to Buffalo in December of '79. And Marie Rice at Channel 4 was doing the morning cut-ins during the CBS Morning News. So there had been women anchors, but I was the first 5-day-a-week female anchor at Channel 4. And yeah, I mean, that's a sense of pride. In Harrisburg, I was the first female anchor ever in Harrisburg. So that was a real pioneer right there.
Well, Carol Jason, you are a pioneer in Western New York television, and thanks for taking some time to spend with us here on WBBZ, your hometown television station.
Well, John, it's great to hear your voice. After all, I've known you for over 30 years, and it's great to hear your voice again. And I applaud you and Phil Arno for everything you've done for Western New York, and especially with that TV station. Whenever we go to Buffalo, I turn it on because I can see telethons, and I can see Irv, and I can see great programming. So congratulations.
Thanks. We appreciate that, Carol. Take care and say hi to Craig, all right?
I sure will, John. Thanks.
Bye-bye now. And that Craig being Craig Nigrelli, her husband, Carol Nigrelli. Thanks for spending some time with us on the phone from Omaha. Something we did not have a chance to get to in the interview. Did you know that Carol plays the cello? She was trained while growing up in Philadelphia, put the instrument down when she was in Western New York. Now Carol plays to audiences with the symphony at Creighton University. Next, meet Lewiston's own Laurie Lisowski-Frey. Laurie, my college intern in 1984 when I was producer of AM Buffalo. She got her first position in Utica, then back to Channel 7 as a reporter and weather anchor, then to Channel 2 as a news anchor. Currently, Laurie is on the board of several not-for-profit and cultural organizations in Western New York, including Art Park and the Food Bank, with her husband, Kent Frey. We had a chance to catch up with Laurie recently when she welcomed us into her home. Laurie Lisowski-Frey, Women in Buffalo Broadcasting. You're a part of this very exclusive group. Who were your who inspired you?
You know, there was a lot of people. If I look at the national level, I was an avid watcher. Jessica Savage comes to mind, one of the first women that were really out there. Barbara Walters a little bit, but locally, I was a local news junkie, and I loved Sherry Margolis, and Susan Banks I watched, Carol Jason. So I used to watch them and think, wow, what a great profession, and I just was always into the news. I think my family was always wondering what was going on locally, nationally, and watching presidential elections to just, you know, local news. And so that's really where I had my spark. You knew early on you had to leave Western New York to really start your career. And you did. And you went out to Utica, I believe. Utica, yes. And I remember when you did that. So what was that like when you got in your car and you left home to take that first job? I remember that day vividly because I graduated and there was a couple of months in between where I didn't have a job yet. And actually you gave me the idea to go to small markets in New York State, say you're going to be in town, see if anybody will meet you. And I had 3 meet and greets, you could say, and one of them was in Utica, and that was in August. A couple months later, the phone rang and they offered me the job, which was 11 o'clock anchor, weather person, reporter, producer, everything. And when I had the start date, I was so excited, but the day I left and leaving my family, I was such a family person, went to college here, it was, I think I cried the whole way, and I think my parents cried for days after, and it was really tough. But when I walked in the door and I had my first real television job, it was extremely exciting. And, you know, just, they had you do all these things, but it was just, it was a great indoctrination. It was getting thrown into the fire, but it was fun. And then you came back to Buffalo. Came back to Channel 7 as weekend weather / reporter. And that too, it's, you know, you had the small market experience, but then I considered Buffalo, to me, this was my hometown. This is where I went to college and interned at Channel 7 and 4, and it was pressure for me. But it was, again, you know, a lot of support staff, people, you know, advising you and helping you. And, you know, my first live shot, I'll remember that. And I've never gone live, and I did that at Channel 7. And once you do it, and then you keep gaining your confidence and gaining your experience. You make a few mistakes along the way, but that's all part of the biz. What were some of the most memorable news stories that you covered? You know, Buffalo, I think one of my first stories, and it was a major story, there were 5 teenagers killed down in, I think it was the Dunkirk area, and it was just a tragic accident. There was 5 or 6, and that sticks out, just the sadness and how that whole community had to deal with such a tragedy. Of course, the O.J. Simpson trial, growing up watching the Bills and O.J. and having something like that put the spotlight on Buffalo, but on an international level, really. Also, I was fortunate to be able to cover Pope John Paul II, World Youth Day in Denver, and then New York City, and then we were able to go to Rome for an audience with the Pope, and that's probably the thing that sticks out because not many people get that opportunity, and to this day I look back on that experience. It was just fabulous. And of course there's the fun stories, you know, Pilot Field grand opening, and you know, the Galleria grand opening, and how exciting that was as a shopper to be able to be a part of something like that. So, you know, those are the fun stories, but then there's the tragedies, and of course then the out-of-town trips were fabulous. Well, and you worked with some of the greats. I mean, you know, the great thing is you were mentored by, you know, people like Cindy Abbott with AM Buffalo, yes, and Irv Weinstein and Eyewitness News. Absolutely. When I look back I really have no regrets because I was able to work with at all 3 stations as an intern at Channel 4. So I pretty much have known everybody in the last 30 years, and just to be able to learn from them, laugh with them, hear their stories, the behind-the-scenes stories are always the best. Just the fun behind the scenes. You know, it's intense, but then it's also fun.
Do you look at yourself as an inspiration now to others?
Yeah, I guess I don't. There was maybe a time when I was on the air every day and people would maybe write in or call and say, you know, would you talk to my daughter? And I did a lot of that, so maybe back then, or they would come to the station to see how things transpired on a daily basis. I guess I don't think of that, but there's still people that ask me questions, and I try to give it to them straight. I say, just be prepared to work really hard and not make a lot of money to start, and do a lot of different jobs, and if it's what you want and it's your passion, you can do it. But you know, don't say I'm just going to try it. I mean, you have to really want it, because I think people were always amazed. Well, what time do you come in every day? And when I would say 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock, the news isn't until 6 o'clock. Well, but there's a lot that has to be done. So you know, it's not just sitting in front of the camera and for half an hour. There's a lot, as you know, John. There's a ton that goes on, 24 hours a day.
Yep, never stops.
Never
but
stops.
It's all good, Laurie.
It's all good.
It's all good. Well, good luck to you. Continued success.
Thanks,
because
John.
you will be an inspiration to others.
Oh,
I'm sure.
thanks, John.
We were so happy Laurie was also a part of our Dingus Day Diary here at WBBZ recently, and will be a part of some upcoming profiles on Art Park. When we come back, you can bank on this woman in television.
There's more with Women in Buffalo Television right after this.